It's the greatest show on water. The fastest boats, the biggest names. The 35th America's Cup has come to Bermuda. 5 teams have been competing in qualifying, fighting for the right to challenge the defenders, Oracle Team USA, for international sport's oldest trophy. France were the first to be eliminated. After a 166-year wait, there was high hopes this time that Britain would bring the cup home. But it was disappointment for Sir Ben Ainslie and his Land Rover BAR team, knocked out in the semi-finals by the on-form New Zealanders. The wait to win the oldest trophy in world sport goes on after a gruelling 3.5-year campaign. In the quest for the America's Cup, many British campaigns have started by assembling a long list of world and Olympic champions for the crew. But success in the Cup requires more than a collection of glittering sailing CVs. No one knows this better than Sir Ben Ainslie. This event is his 4th Cup campaign. When he joined his first Cup team, won World in 2000, he had 2 Olympic medals, yet only held a junior role aboard the boat. After the 2004 Olympics, and with another gold medal to his name, he joined Team New Zealand as their second helmsman in the 2007 campaign, before going on to perform the same role with Oracle Team USA in 2013. Within 2 consecutive campaigns, Ainslie had witnessed both defeat and victory. So when it came to forming his own team, he knew what he needed. The announcement of Ben Ainslie Racing in June 2014 came with royal approval. It also came with solid backing from an impressive consortium of wealthy, accomplished and experienced individuals, led by Sir Keith Mills and Sir Charles Dunstan. Shortly afterwards, the team began building an impressive base in Portsmouth, overlooking the waters in which the Cup had been conceived.
To bring the America's Cup home would be a lifelong ambition. Our maritime history is so strong in the UK, and this is the one thing that we've never won. Being based here in Portsmouth, if we could bring the Cup back here to where it all started, for all of us in this team, that would be a huge achievement.
After an inconsistent run in the round-robin series, which also featured Oracle USA, Britain found themselves up against a fast New Zealand boat in the semi-finals. It didn't start well. Damage to the wing caused BAR to retire from race 1. They had to forfeit race 2 with repairs underway. The Kiwis weren't faultless in the series themselves, flipping over in the Sound in the most dramatic moment of this America's Cup so far. But in the end, they proved too good. Britain were out. So what went wrong?
A lot of these decisions that we make as a team. You look at how these boats are sailed and raced. You know, every area interlinks. You know, it's not just one area, whether it's foil design or control systems or cycling pedestals. You know, it's the whole package, and everyone, the whole team is responsible for that and putting that together. And you know, like I say, we win or lose as a team, and I'm incredibly proud of every single person's effort in that team. I'm a very competitive person. The team is a very competitive team. We want to be winning, and we set that as our target. And that's still the same, and now we move forwards, and our goal is still to win the America's Cup, to bring it home.
British interest is far from over in the Cup though. Sweden's Artemis Racing have a strong contingent from UK shores. The team is managed by former Olympic gold medalist Ian Percy. They came from 4-1 down to beat Japan in the other semi-final.
Yeah, boys!
Yeah, I think there's probably more Brits in Artemis than any other nationality. It's nice also to always be on the grinding pedestal with my old mate Chris Brittle. He manages to cover me through the tough periods, and you know, he's a fantastic ambassador for British sailing and British sport generally. A fantastic athlete.
You know, what's going to win this Challenger final?
Starting, and then a race delivered free of mistakes from that moment on. Yeah, I think the starting is a real strength of ours. We're then pretty deliberate, calm and professional after that point. We're quite a hard team to pass, so I feel strong in that respect. I mean, these things are always, it's sport, you know, it's hard, it's aggressive, they're a strong team, and it's going to come down to sometimes that split-second decision in the last 10 seconds before the start, but I'd back Nathan every day of the week.
The Challenger final here on the Great Sound is a best of 9 race series, first to 5 wins. And conditions here on day one look pretty challenging, light, difficult conditions. It's going to be a hard day.
Well, welcome to the Great Sound of Bermuda. The scene for the first day of the playoff final. The L-shaped racecourse features a 2-minute start sequence followed by the critical high-speed blast reach to Mark 1. 5 quick legs with and against the 10-knot southwesterly breeze and a final dash to the finish only 200 meters from the America's Cup village.
So here we go then, the Louis Vuitton America's Cup Challenger playoffs finals underway. First to 5 race wins becomes the challenger. Make or break now for these two. Ken, are they playing safe in the pre-start, or is one team rolling the dice?
Well, we're already seeing kind of some action that we haven't seen before. It's light air out there. It's only 8.5 knots of breeze, which is barely foiling conditions with your big boards in. It'll be fascinating to see if Emirates Team New Zealand, their aggressiveness based on their stability in light air with those big long boards, if that's negated by this choice. I think these guys are both a little late in the lighter air right now and just kind of legging it back to the starting line right now.
So the chase on to the start line. Nathan Attridge will be much the happier at this point over his positioning. We've seen the Kiwis, though, with excellent performances in light air here in Bermuda. But as they head off to the start line, it is Sweden who are getting a really good clean start and already at 25 knots, safely up onto the foils and screaming away towards that first mark.
It's very early to say. Obviously, we have a 3-race day, but whether the light air foils versus the heavy air foils played a part in that pre-start. Certainly Sweden, with port tack entry in the pre-start, they came in from the left-hand side of the starting line. They got to pick and choose the time that they wanted to go back toward the line far more effectively than Emirates Team New Zealand. Therefore, we've got a good little lead coming into Mark 1.
So the wind speed may only be 8 or 9 knots, but as we've seen, these boats well capable of moving at speeds of 4 times the wind speed. And round the first mark go Artemis Racing, the Swedish team here in Bermuda, setting the pace in the early exchanges as Emirates Team New Zealand follow them around the mark.
It's amazing how much the good old-fashioned weatherman comes into play on a day like today. For those of us who are just joining the America's Cup in this new crazy version of the America's Cup, you can have 2 different types of dagger boards. And those dagger boards, think of the lift on a plane. If you're trying to lift a plane off the tarmac at lower speeds, you would have longer wings. Well, same thing with these guys. If they're trying to lift these boats out of the water, which is so crucial at lower speeds, lighter wind conditions, you want your big wings on. Artemis has them in today. Team New Zealand doesn't.
So let's get an idea from Joey Newton exactly how late you can leave that decision. Joey, what's the protocol here? Because you may be having to make decisions at, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning for wind conditions that are very different come 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's right, Ali. You can't just snap your fingers and change the boards in a matter of minutes in these boats. There's quite a bit of work to be done. So these guys are making the decision. They'll start talking around 7:30 in the morning. 8 o'clock in the morning, they'll have a tentative decision. The boats go in the water around 10, so everything pretty much needs to be decided by 9.
Well, it's pretty tight out there, not a whole lot to choose between them, and Emirates Team New Zealand making good progress in closing the gap.
We'll know a lot more about whether they think their foils are going to work in this lighter air or not based on some of their decisions. It's surprising they didn't do a jibe around to the other mark and do what's called a split going up. They decided to just follow in Artemis and let the chips kind of fall where they may. Let's see how our boats... These guys are also kind of feeling each other out right now. They've all made dramatic changes to their boats since they raced last, and let's see how fast we are compared to the other guy.
So the Kiwis are tacking a little earlier than the Swedes here, just in an attempt to break the spell. Every maneuver inevitably involving a loss of boat speed for a moment or two.
Both boats splashing down after that tack. So especially for Emirates Team New Zealand, where we've seen them do those really radical course changes in the tacks and staying up on their foils, they didn't stay up on their foils in that tack. In fact, they were down in the water for quite a while.
Facing up 25. Facing up a little here. Yeah, pretty close to attack here, boys. Number 12 replacement. Last pressure on. Standing by.
Here's the tack from the Kiwis. Pretty slick.
Okay, that's more like what we've seen in the past, where they had the pace going into the attack and just that radical turn. Artemis will still cross, but as we always assumed, not by much.
Go, boys. The board stones.
So the Kiwis are beginning to pass. They have made excellent ground. That was a very tidy maneuver, a very clean, crisp tack, and it's put them marginally in front as they head towards the third gate.
We just saw the opposite of what we thought we would see. The boat with the light air boards, which is Artemis, definitely didn't tack quite as effectively, but now here's like classic match racing. It's called a pinching maneuver. Artemis is trying to get up underneath and actually give disturbed air to deflect off of their wing into Emirates Team New Zealand. They will be protected by the border here shortly. This is going to be a critical tack in this race. Who tacks the boat best coming up to this boundary?
We're approaching crunch time as the boundary is hoving into view.
Artemis is allowed to tack as soon as they get within 3 boat lengths. Who can do a foiling tack right here? Better tack quick,
Swedes are leaving it late, too late. Inside the boundary they go, and that will incur a penalty. As a result, that is a major setback for Nathan Outridge and his crew, and the Kiwis are heading off out in front, having made a rather better fist of things. They've
goodness, an unforced error at exactly the wrong time. Listen, they had all the right in the world to tack whenever they wanted to when they entered the 3 boat length zone within the boundary, and they still have their penalty. They have to drop back 2 full boat lengths. Just made a silly mistake going into the boundary.
So round gate 3, downwind once more, and it is the turn of Artemis Racing, the Swedes, to do the chasing at this point. But that is a maneuver and a penalty up at the boundary, which has really cost them.
What a different way of managing that human power. These guys went for leg muscles, the other guys went for arm muscles.
And the debate is still raging as to which is the more efficient. We maybe will have some statistics in another little while to be able to analyze exactly the power output of each of the different boats and the different techniques, the cyclors as they become known, or the traditional grinders. Kiwis certainly think that this cycling method has given them a little edge. It might only be one of several little edges, but certainly here they've been served well by it in Bermuda.
How cool is the choreography of the crew work as they come across the boat? We'll have to go back and look at that again. How and where each person positions themselves coming out of attack in lighter air versus breezier conditions.
Turning upwind once more, and again the boat handling is good from Peter Burling, Glenn Ashby. They're all in perfect unison, and Nathan Outridge being put under a degree of pressure here in the Swedish boat.
You know, it's kind of interesting, Joey, talking about the light air boards versus the breezier boards. Sure still seems to me that Emirates Team New Zealand has a bit of an edge in staying up on the foils and the tacks. What does it look like from out there?
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Ken. The manoeuvres just seem a little bit smoother and a bit more consistent. I think as if the patches of the course where the breeze is less, we've seen Artemis gaining, and they've got lighter air boards. They pop up earlier, but as the breeze builds, like it is at the moment, Team New Zealand seems to have a little speed advantage. So smaller boards, less drag. When they're up in the air, they're going to go faster.
The Kiwis out in front. Race 1 of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup Challenger Playoffs final. The Swedes with it all to do here.
The good thing for the Swedes is at least they'll be having a split up here. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Emirates Team New Zealand jibe fairly quickly and try to get over in the same water. They would give up a little bit of their lead, but let's get over and stay on the same side of the race course because it is kind of fluky breeze, kind of shifty. Let's try to eliminate options for Artemis Racing.
Nathan Outridge looking to chase down his old rival, Peter Burling. They have met on countless different courses across the globe, and just one of the delicious little subplots of this particular contest between Sweden and New Zealand. It's going to take something special from Artemis Racing now if they're to close the gap with this sort of distance in the race left. Just half a leg before the final blast reach to the finish. They're a perfect illustration of the two different grinding techniques.
Doesn't get much different, more different than that. On the Kiwi boat, as a grinder, you really get to know the guy in front of you. Have you noticed that?
Maybe not the parts of them that you'd like, but...
Here comes the choreography again. Ashby driving the boat, coming out of the tacks and jibes. You see him right there in the cockpit, in the back of the boat. Right back there, Glenn Ashby. That's the wing trimmer who's driving the boat. Not a bad driver. Hops forward, burling in. Perfect.
And all done with minimal chat. I mean, there really is very little conversation on that boat, and we've been watching them for a couple of weeks now. By contrast to the Swedes, they really don't interact a huge amount. It seems to be done mostly on telepathy. And they are through the final gate, and they are heading for the finish line. This has been a terrific display by the Kiwis. Well, they have executed almost to perfection here this afternoon on the Great Sounds, the New Zealanders. Such a contrast from the chaos and the turmoil of Tuesday, when their boat did not look at its best. But this is a team in perfect unison at the moment. Very calm, very relaxed, and safely in the knowledge that they've got this first race tucked away in the bag. Good boat speed all the way down the runway, and the Kiwis take a 1-0 lead in the playoffs final, overcoming something of a slow start, capitalising crucially on that Swedish penalty just before gate 3. New Zealand up in the final, all done with the minimum of fuss. Small errors really are made to pay out there on the Great Sound, and that tack into the boundary was something that Nathan Outridge and the rest of his Swedish crew will look back on with some regret, you feel. Peter, many congratulations. You've got ahead in the final. What was the key? Was it all about that tack where the Swedes went into the boundary and picked up the penalty?
Yeah, well, for ourselves, you know, obviously we weren't happy with the start. It was obviously really light where we entered, so no, it was a bit of a tough one to actually do the 2 drives, get hooked up and get back to the start. So it made life pretty easy for them, but you know, the boys really dug deep, plenty of oil, so we could just do some really nice tacks. And you know, I think that one foiling tack we did out on the right-hand side really set up that incident at the top, which we gained a lot.
You know, we thought we'd try and tack right on their face there and just mistimed it a bit. And, you know, that was the race. You know, apart from that, you know, I thought we were sailing really well, really good start. So just have to regroup and have another go in a couple of minutes.
Race 1 of the Challenger Finals. You cannot afford to be making unforced errors. What a disappointing race for Artemis Racing. But for the New Zealanders, well, they sailed flawlessly. Let's see what happens in race 2.
Race number 2 then of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup Challenger Playoffs final. New Zealand's and Peter Burling with a 1-0 lead and bursting to hammer home this advantage. But we know, oh yes we know, how just unpredictable these races can prove to be.
There's Emirates Team New Zealand tacking to get back up there. They've decided to gap off and go for a high-speed start. Both boats are kind of settling for their position. Let's see who pulls the trigger the best.
And as we've seen on countless occasions out here on the Great Sand, the timing of this is pivotal. Have the Swedes timed it well? It looks like they have to the left-hand side, and Artemis Racing are off and running, but the Kiwis right alongside them. Both the boats foiling early and reaching up and beyond the 30-knot mark.
This is about angle into the mark right now. Artemis is actually holding them well up above the mark. The mark is way down there, so they're holding them well above the mark. This is a tactical situation where Artemis will hold them up and they'll peel off first and try to either get them to foul, which there's a little luff. He's actually heading up. Artemis Racing fully in control right now. A little luff, get them slow and bear away. Very good match racing tactics by Nathan Outteridge.
So the Swedes off to marginally the better start, thanks to their helmsman. Aggressive ploys in these early exchanges as they round Mark 1 and head downwind for the first time.
2 for 2 starts for Nathan Outteridge. Let's turn it into something if you're a Swedish fan. Little luff here, here we go. Come on up, get out of the way. Artemis is the leeward boat with an overlap, which means they are the right-of-way boat. Both boats did exactly what they had to do. Artemis can give them a little luff, but the Kiwis stayed out of the way. No harm, no foul. Race on.
Both boats jiving almost simultaneously, and as we can see, just the slenderest of margins between the two. It's been really instructive over the last couple of weeks to see how calm the New Zealanders are when they are faced with a boat in front of them. They just know their boat speed is good. Here the heart rates of the grinders. Anders Gustafsson is all maxed out.
I don't even know what to say. So the maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age, and I think he's about 12 years old. So that if that's you or me, the next thing you know is there's an ambulance on the way. I can tell you that.
The lights are flashing.
Kiwis following in, doing exactly what they did in that first race. Let's use our maneuverability and our speed. 2 really tight, really good roundings. Both boats very clearly foiling through their tacks more effectively, but it's this flat-out boat speed that sometimes you see the heavier air boards, or not sometimes, all the time you see the heavier air boards possibly being a little quicker. Look at these handholds right here on the wheel. That's the helmsman. When he puts his hand on there, the helmsman's controlling the fore and aft rake of the dagger boards, the lift or the drop in the boat. You see it, his right hand, he was actually doing it there.
So there's the 2 boats side by side, so we might get a chance to have a a slightly tighter look at the foils themselves and the discrepancies between the two.
Very straight blades, those horizontal blades, quite straight on Artemis. Let's see how quick and good they're tacking smack on top of Emirates Team New Zealand. A good foiling tack. They're going to use their wing wash here to try to throw some disturbed air on top of Emirates Team New Zealand. Really, again, for a lot of newcomers to multi-hulls. Look at how straight that foil is. Look at that. That's just dead straight. Where you see the tip out here, the tip is actually completely straight. Whereas we'll possibly take a look at the Kiwis in a minute. The Kiwis definitely don't have that straight foil. Look at the bend to the foil, the kink in the foils on the Kiwis boat compared to that super straight foil that we saw. It's amazing that very smart people, to try to accomplish the same thing, come up with completely different ways to design them.
I think that's as close as we've been to the foil so far. Cameras everywhere. These guys can barely breathe without us picking up something.
Well, this is as close as we've seen to good racing so far here as well. 50 meters between the two. That's a less than a one mistake. You better not come off your foils and attack, or the other boat's going to pass you, or you're going to extend significantly.
Bodies down. Pressure inside your goose. BMG.
Just look at the grimacing faces. They are digging in here, the grinders. Just a relentless drive to the finish line from the outset. There is no let up, and with 3 races today, depending on how much rotation they use in their squad, there's going to be some tired bodies this evening.
These are brutal races on the afterguard, kind of a modern day afterguard, of course. The helmsman and the tactician, these tight races, there is zero room for effort, or for mistakes, zero.
So what the Kiwis hope will be the final tack into the gate.
Artemis slamming right on top of them, not literally, but figuratively, of course. Again, using that wing wash, that disturbed air that will come off the back of the wing to try to slow down the Kiwis. Look at that, right smack upwind. There's a wash right on top. That was a perfectly timed tack by Artemis Racing.
High up on their foils as they round the gate, these Swedes, with a narrow advantage, but a significant one at the moment, and it is Peter Burling who is trying to work out ways and means of reeling them in from here.
The Kiwis are not going away. They are right there.
One mistake.
One
might
mistake.
be all it takes.
This is a less than a one. We keep calling them one mistake leads. This is less than a one mistake lead. Both boats have been out of the water with their lured hulls the last time we look 100% of the time.
20 seconds, all stand by.
Look at that, the gap closed from 150 down to 65 odd meters, and still 100% of the time up on the foils. You always maintain, Kenny, that if you're within 150, you've got a sniff.
Well, 100. I think a bad tack is about 150 meter tack. That is the conclusion that I've come to, just kind of looking at the 2 weeks worth of racing so far. Easy to say from up here in the booth. Those are 2 more perfect tacks. Another part of the America's Cup always is, as you advance in the rounds, you see fewer and fewer mistakes. To see 2 boats right now, both flying 100% of the time, is just stunning. That's just remarkable.
Let's check in with Joey Newton, part of Oracle Team USA. He's out on the water for us this afternoon. Joey, anything you've picked up from this race that we haven't spotted that you think might be a crucial factor? It looks like the Swedes are Well, they may just have enough to cling on to the lead they gained from the start here.
Yeah, the Swedes are sailing fantastically, Ali. And just one thing I've been noticing, when the boats are on starboard tack, Artemis doesn't really seem to have that much of a speed deficit. But when they're on port tack like now, they do. So they might have a slightly lower drag set up on their foil on the left-hand side to help them on the reach, and that's paying dividends when they're upwind on starboard.
Now we're getting into a little bit of, that's good information. Let's whether it's true or not, Joey, we're running with that, okay?
Okay.
Well, we've been struggling to squeeze the secrets of this mystifying sport out of Joey for a fortnight now. Finally, it's bearing fruit.
But Joey, I mean, Oracle Racing, as your teammates, I'll tell you what, if I were watching this race right now and I was on Oracle, I'd be thinking this is about as high quality a racing as you could possibly get. They've both been out 100% of the time, 0 mistakes. Essentially, the lead that we saw off the line is exactly the lead now. This is quality.
Yeah, well, I can tell you all the guys are in there. They've got a special little room that they sit in and watch these races. So they're all in there at the moment, probably getting massages and eating ice cream and watching a pretty good battle going on.
While you're struggling out on the water, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm toughing it out here.
Putting it in for us. Thanks, Joey. So approaching gate 5, one more downwind leg before the reach to the finish. And it is tight, really tight at the moment. Kiwis far from out of it.
I think there'll be a split at this top gate. So Ian Percy made the decision to not cover there. He's willing to just do one more tack and into the gate. The Kiwis are going to will do 2 tacks to get into the gate. So he's minimizing one maneuver, but the risk is very likely a split as this next run, the final run down to the finish, happens.
Similar boat speeds as they round the gate. Nathan Outridge and his crew looking to cling on to this lead that they've built and held, picking up some really useful speed away from the gate, but as ever, no panic on board Emirates Team New Zealand, just resolve and organisation and hard work.
You saw Burling looking down. He was looking at that gauge to tell him where the boundary was. Again, no chance at a bad maneuver here for either boat.
And the Kiwis may just be reaping the benefits, although the boat speed's now very similar as they head very close to the boundary edge. The New Zealanders must be very tight to that. Very tight indeed, but safe regardless.
Flawless boat handling for both boats through the entire race. Like, stunning boat handling.
Yeah, in the pressure here. Yep.
That mark that Artemis, darn close to split in half right there. It's actually Mark 1. That is irrelevant on the course for the rest of the race. They just round it first. Ian Percy has moved all the way to the back of the boat. That is tactician Ian Percy right there. He's in the back of the boat. He's got his weight back aft, so he's taken himself out of the power plant, and they're actually moved their weight aft on this leg to try to probably rock the boat, use the foils a little more effectively.
Looks like fun, doesn't it? I know you miss it, Kenny. You'd love to be doing that right now.
Yeah, maybe around Ocean Drive in Newport, but I don't see myself out there in the water doing that. Still a 1 mistake lead, but Artemis should be quite close to laying this gate, getting into the gate on one more jibe. But I'll tell you what, still Emirates Team New Zealand not going away. A little more pressure where Team New Zealand is right now. One more jibe to go though for New Zealand. Artemis should be laying straight in.
So the lead around about 110 meters or so, but the Swedes have managed very tidily to go through the gate, and they are off and flying down this finishing straight. New Zealand in hot pursuit, but it looks like their challenge might be done in this, the second race of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup Challenger Playoff Final.
You could make a case that Team New Zealand has sailed one of their best races in the entire event. I believe they're still at 100% fly time, but when a boat sails as well as Artemis, they had the jump at the start. New Zealand. I was so excited for 100%. Artemis has sailed as close to a perfect race as we've seen, and if the boat ahead sails as quickly as they have and as mistake-free as they have, you're not going to get by. I'm sorry, you're not ever going to get by. Look at the numbers up on their wing. There's a bunch of numbers ticking away. I don't think we've seen that yet. Up on their wing, a whole bunch of numbers.
Well, the numbers are stacking up in their favour this time around. Artemis Racing of Sweden, led by Nathan Outridge, bouncing back with victory in race 2. Their boat handling flawless, up on the foils for the duration of the race, and hammering over the finish line in front. 1 point apiece in the final as we see the Kiwi splash down. Game on.
Nathan Outridge and Peter Burling closely matched. A familiar scenario for these two hotshot helmsmen.
I've known Pete for close to 10 years now. We were training partners in the 49er leading into the London Olympics. You know, we would stay together, live together, train together, and we're really good mates.
We're incredibly good friends with Nathan and Goobs and a few of the other guys on the Artemis boat, and now we've raced together a lot in the 49er. Had some really good battles over the years.
You know, I think it's quite incredible from where we were 10 years ago, and you know, now representing two America's Cup teams fighting each other. Clearly we both enjoy some high risk sailing, and I think there's going to be some high risk sailing coming, and you know, we'll be going pretty hard for the win, that's for sure.
Knowing those guys, they'll be bringing their A game, and it's something that I think they know we'll be bringing our A game as well.
And the two boats on collision course. Hand-to-hand combat out there on the water.
Yeah, we've had two very close battles with Emirates Team New Zealand in the round robin.
Penalty on the Swedes. You've got some angry guys on Sweden right now.
We definitely had some cracking races.
Just look at the way they are taking each other on.
We're really happy to end up on the right side of it both times. I'm sure you know, there'll be some more close racing to come over the weekend.
You know, I think that we get our configuration right, it's going to be a good battle. It'd definitely be nice to get one up on Pete. You know, we got the gold in London, he got the silver, and then it reversed in Rio last year. And you know, ever since London, been solidly committed here with Artemis Racing, getting ready for basically this match that's coming up.
I think both of us really enjoy that really cutthroat kind of competition. Both of us, we're trying to do exactly the same thing. We're trying to win a yacht race. I'm sure it'll be, you know, a really enjoyable battle out there, and you know, both of us will be giving it all.
You cannot separate these two teams. One race all, one race to go to see who takes the advantage after day one.
Outridge and Burling locking horns again. Sweden against New Zealand. And even in the entry box, the battle, the jousting is well underway. These two just trying to outmaneuver each other and get into position in the favoured space.
The push and shove going on here right now. Artemis pushing Emirates Team New Zealand hard toward the starting line, and then they decide to just kind of roll over the top and gap off. These boats are very early coming into towards the start line right now. You'd have to, at this stage, favor the position of Emirates Team New Zealand. Artemis trying to go over the top. Is there an overlap between the two boats right now? Team New Zealand will continue to push. If they can keep pushing up the line,
Okay, watch this.
they could make this difficult. But I think they just might be happy to kind of just do this time and distance thing and head for the mark. They will have an overlap, though.
Such a delicate balance. But they have trod that fine line pretty carefully, both of these two.
Remember the angle difference for Artemis. Sorry, Ali, that angle difference from the top of the line over the shorter distance from Emirates Team New Zealand's part of the line.
So for the third time this afternoon, the Swedes off to the better start, and they're the boat out in front as they reach for the first mark.
The better angle won. Time and distance-wise, I thought the Kiwis got up on their foils pretty effectively there, but Artemis showed a burst of speed off the line.
Tell you what, we're up into the 40-knot category here, which is as fast as we've seen the Kiwis, even well beyond that. 42 knots of boat speed. Does that indicate that the wind has picked up a good deal?
Well, let's go back to Joey Newton on the water. Joey, a little more breeze?
Yeah, it's picked up a little bit, Ken. I just think it's due to there's a little bit of weather up to the windward side of the course where it's raining, and that's pushing quite a bit more breeze through. So we could see as much as 14 or 15 knots for this race.
Ali, I think it's safe to say there's not much in it. One boat essentially in the lap of the other boat here right now.
So again, similar dynamic, isn't it, to what we saw in race number 2. Racing in tight confines.
At this time in the regatta, you better be perfect, and both of these boats are proving that perfection is possible.
They were happy to go straight because they will have the inside. What do you think, Nate? Yeah, happy to go straight. Unless you get to the zone. At the moment, I'd say pressure's still on the left. Up the course. Yeah. He's keel in, but he could change. Let's just go left, Mark. Yeah, early track. It's only 40 metres now, it's a loss to him, okay?
It's really instructive to see the collaborative effort of the Swedes and the chat between them. The communication is very strong. It's one of their strongest elements as we see an excellent mark rounding from them. The Kiwis splitting the course, not nearly so talkative, but they are off hunting air in a different direction.
40 seconds there, facing up.
The Kiwis just pulled off that super tough last-second jibe maneuver going into that gate in order to gain the split. They didn't follow around this time. I think that's something probably that they talked about in between races. Twice now, they've simply followed around Artemis in that bottom gate. This time around, they chose to do the split.
And by doing that, Ken, by following them around, they're essentially waiting for the error, right?
Waiting for the error, and they're sitting in their coach boat, and I guarantee their coach is saying, these guys ain't making many errors right now, so let's start mixing it up a little bit and go off and try to do our thing and find a good wind shift.
Proactivity
now is good.
from the New Zealanders. Still, the chat comes from Ian Percy.
Sorry, Ali, even though the first cross may come back to Artemis, Artemis has to make a choice here. Do you tack on top of the other boat, or do you continue allowing the split?
We haven't got a hit, we keep going.
Right, so that you heard Ian Percy say we don't have a hit, keep going, which means they still have a split. You know, that split didn't just happen at the bottom mark, didn't just happen on here in the first cross. They're going to get another shot at a wind shift here. So that's what you're setting yourself up for. Doesn't have to happen. The miracle doesn't have to happen immediately, but hopefully the wind gods help you out if you're Emirates Team New Zealand as you go up the race course.
Very little in it still as they head upwind on this third leg of 7. The Swedes with a narrow advantage, which they have held from the word go.
It will lift back up in a minute.
This is going to be a reasonably tight cross.
Slight right-hand wind shift as indicated in the upper corner. That course access is 230. The breeze is currently at 235. Slight gain for Emirates Team New Zealand coming back on that cross. It's amazing, Ali, the difference in communication. You brought it up earlier on the two boats. Oh, they're sailing a lousy race so far.
Terrible.
This race.
Goodness. Get the cat o' nine tails out.
Ian Percy and Nathan Outteridge are far more kind of old school skipper tactician, helmsman tactician communication, where the tactician's almost giving you a play-by-play. It's very much the way I was taught to do it. New school is way different. To be frank, going on this boat and kind of laying out and listening on Emirates Team New Zealand is just hearing to some clinking and clunking. They don't talk. So Burling is all over this by himself. Now we're coming up to a key moment here. If Burling can get into that zone and have a piece of Artemis, he would be allowed to round that left, but Artemis gets across and stays barely in the lead.
Just in the nick of time for the Swedish boat. Round they go, but there is less and less of a gap between these two. And look at the boat speed of the Kiwis. Just piling away from the gate.
The starboard tack boat, Artemis Racing, has right away, but as you approach those marks, there's a whole bunch of other little rules that come into effect. Fact is, no harm, no foul. Artemis squeaks around the mark ahead. Boy, looking at the race course right now, there's a lot of dark water where Artemis Racing was, but Kiwis were going awful fast. I was just about to say, it looked like Artemis Racing was potentially in a little more wind pressure. We'll have to see what this cross looks like as these boats come back together. I think they've had a little gain. You see that dark water up at the top of the screen. That whole area where Artemis is, just a little bit darker water. So maybe a slight stretch out to 100 meters in this day and age. A massive lead. Look at this.
How tough is it to spot those wind shifts when you're actually flying along at 30, 40 knots though, Ken? Can you instantly see that there would be a change to conditions if you headed off in a particular direction, if you got up there quick enough?
Well, nothing's instant and nothing is assured. You're using your intuition as the tactician, or in the Kiwis' case, Burling as the helmsman. You're just looking at the water and trying to see the dark patches at that stage. You have instruments on board telling you what the shift is. Is it to the right or to the left? But the key move in these boats, which can gain you so much speed, is stay in the dark water. That means in the best velocity on the race course.
And by their nature, wind shifts are presumably a little shifty, as we see not the cleanest of jibes from the Swedes. That might cost them a little bit as they head towards gate 4. They've got a tight mark rounding as well. Round they go, and the Kiwis are recovering well from their maneuver too.
Artemis didn't have a perfect jibe, and all of a sudden we are almost dead even on the race course. Next time back across, the Kiwis will have starboard tack. Here comes their jibe. They're a little unstable going into the jibe. Sorry, this is coming out of the jibe. Not only do they get too low, then they get a little too high. Oof. Don't make a mistake out there, fellas. A little late afternoon shower up on the starboard hull. Okay, key moment. Starboard tack, Emirates Team New Zealand. Port tack, Artemis. As we all know, starboard tack boat has right away. Can Artemis get across clean?
TWD meaning true wind direction.
True wind direction. Pretty similar. Nice job. Ali, as a rugby guy, you're starting to get it. Does Artemis have to duck? Is Artemis going to get across clean? Close.
There's not a huge amount in it.
Not for the faint of heart. 2 lengths.
Reasonably lifted here. Not on full point yet. This one on the
Ian Jensen, the man nestled in between Nathan Outteridge and Ian Percy.
Adding time for pressure.
Watch Percy's eyes. Percy's eyes are looking up at that wing all the time. He's not only looking at pressure in the water, but he's looking at that instrumentation, that box of instruments we saw that are perched up on the wing in order to read the true wind direction. As you just called a minute ago, the actual wind direction. They have an instrument on board that boat that will help guide what that wind direction is. Here comes another tight cross.
Just get the feeling this might be tighter than the last one. So the cross coming your way. The Swedes with their noses in front. The Kiwis in hot pursuit at the moment, trying to make up ground. One apiece in the Challenger playoffs final, remember.
Just sights we've never seen before. Amazing new camera angles. We have 8 cameras on each boat right now. There's drones flying. There's helicopters everywhere. There's boats, the cameramen on boats.
There's no escape.
There's no escape.
At the moment, the marks are pretty even, all right?
Here's where a little wind shift, a tiny wind shift, is going to make the difference in this race.
Well, they're at opposite ends of the course at the moment, but they are neck and neck in reality.
Look at this. One little left-hand shift, possibly, although the true wind direction seems to be, oh, they were attacking. So the true wind direction goes all over the map when it's that we're actually getting the instrumentation off of these boats. Man overboard on Sweden during the tack.
Oh, my goodness.
Who is it?
It looks like it
I'm
might...
going to look at them.
Is that Nathan Aldridge?
Okay, right-hand mark. Go right. Go right, go right, go right.
Wait a minute.
We got enough.
First of all, he's okay.
Well, this is the first time we've seen this in Bermuda, and the Swedes in all kinds of bother with a man down. The Kiwis have streaked out in front, and they will round this gate and head downwind for the final time in the race.
Just when you think you've seen it all, you got to be kidding me. This might be Outeridge that's in the water.
I think it is. Yeah.
It's Outeridge.
He's gone. The helmsman's gone. And the rest of them are getting a dousing.
It's over, I think, boys. Yeah, play it safe. Go on, 2 holes in.
I think they're just backing off right now, knowing that this is over.
This is when it happened. This is when Nathan Aldridge went disappearing into the drink. Top right of your screen is gone. Just the smallest of slides, and out he went.
Sliding into second base, and he's safe. Holy mackerel.
Dramatic developments out on the Great Sound as the Kiwis hammer their way over the finishing line. They've won race 3. They move 2-1 ahead in the Challenger playoffs final. Nathan Aldridge overboard for Sweden, and Peter Burling capitalising. We've had confirmation, thankfully, that Nathan Aldridge is fine and well and just honing his front crawl. Let's just see the moment when he actually returned.
Where have you been?
And that is just the start, you feel, of the ribbing that's coming. Good stuff. So New Zealand then with the better of today's racing wins in races 1 and 3 for the Kiwis. The Swedes outstanding in race 2, but losing their helmsman overboard in the final race of the day. And the New Zealanders really making hay as a result. So they lead by 2 points to 1. First to 5 race wins in a maximum of 9.
So no shortage of close action or drama out on the Great Sound. I chatted to both the skippers when they came ashore.
Well, you know, it is disappointing to only get the 1 win today after leading all 3 of them and being actually in a really good spot in that final race. But, you know, we grow a lot of confidence from today. You know, we sailed really well. If we can just get a couple of, mistakes out of our game, you know, we'll get those points back, no problem. So, you know, confidence levels are actually really high. And today, you know, a few errors from the sailing team actually cost us a lot. And, you know, if we can just keep starting the way we have been and keep the boat going as quick as it is, we're going to make it really hard for them to get races off us.
Well, you stunned the TV audience when you sprinted across the boat and just kept going. Just talk to us a little bit about that and perhaps just how hard it is to get from side to side.
Yeah, well, to do a foiling tack on these boats, you have to spin the boat quick, and you know, when the bottom speeds are still over 20 knots, it's a very difficult terrain to operate on, and that tack, it was a really glam tack actually, and just as I was, you know, on the windward side was the point where Goobs had to straighten the boat up because we're on angle, and you straighten it up and the G-forces hit you quite hard, and I think my feet were mid-air when he straightened it up, and you know, just left the building unfortunately.
Well, Pete, congratulations. End of the first day in this final, 2-1 up. But you know, how pleased are you and how pleased are the team?
Yeah, well, we're really proud with the way we fought today, and you know that we didn't quite get off the line, and it felt like we had really good opportunities with 30 seconds to go in both starts, but didn't quite execute that last bit. But you know, just hung in there, and you know, they sailed a really good second race to not give us any opportunities to pass. But in that last one, you know, we changed our tactics a little bit and kept split the whole way, and it felt like it didn't really matter on that last cross whether Nath had fallen off or not. You know, we were definitely right back in the game there at the top, and I think that's just full credit to the way the guys kept fighting, kept right in the game, and you know, gave ourselves an opportunity.
No shortage of things to talk about today, and joining me to share his thoughts is Olympic sailor Stevie Morrison. Stevie, we have to start, don't we, with Nathan Utteridge running off his boat. How easy is that to do?
I think, you know, the nature of these boats, they're fast and they're furious, and I mean, he's a skiff sailor. These fast boats, when you're turning them, the G-force you feel, it's trying to throw you off the boat anyway, so that trying to stop is really, really difficult, and I guess he would have done it several hundreds of times in practice, but maybe, you know, it was a really tight moment. He would have known it was going to be a tight cross with the Kiwis, and perhaps he just went for that extra half a second quicker across the boat, missed a foot, and he was ejected off the boat, which is a real shame.
It was heartbreaking to watch for Artemis Racing because they'd had such a good day. It felt they were really on form.
Yeah, I think in this kind of one-on-one combat, you've really got to take it on. And with Ian Percy as tactician, I'd say without doubt they got the best match racer out there. And obviously match racing needs that aggression, that hand-to-hand combat almost. And Artemis dominated that. 3 starts, 3 wins at the first mark. They just made some mistakes. They've got to cut out the mistakes and rely on that sort of communication and partnership that Ian's clearly got with Nathan.
The New Zealanders feels a little bit like they're relying on their speed. If anyone's watching this for the first time, they'll notice that the cyclers, the band of cyclists pedalling away throughout the race. Just is that giving them the edge?
Certainly their design is quite an aggressive design, and what it requires is extra energy. That energy comes into the boat with hydraulic fluid that's pumped up almost like a bike pump with the legs of the cyclists, and you know, you don't see many of the track cyclists going around with their hands pumping the pedals, so I can only assume, you know, there's a lot of science to show legs are better. They're getting more energy, and I think they're able to use that energy to make the boat go faster. So it's great to see the technology of sailing, and you know, it's really interesting.
Well, thanks, Stevie, and it certainly feels there's never a dull moment here in Bermuda. Join us again tomorrow at 2 o'clock on BBC Two for the second day of the Challenger Finals.